All right. Hi, everyone. This is Brad from Board Game Geek. I'm here with David Dunham, designer of King of Dragon Pass. David, how are you doing tonight?
Good, Brad.
Good. Yeah, we're really excited to have you, and thank you so much for taking the time. A lot of us are really big fans of King of Dragon Pass, and we're excited now that it's on Android, as well as the recent update with the kind of contest winner from Pocket Tactics with the new story. So we're really excited to get back into the game. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Cool. So yeah, I'll just pull up the game here and we'll kind of get started. Um, to get started on that, can you kind of tell us how you came up with the idea for King of Dragon Pass and why you picked the Glorantha universe to set it in?
So it goes back to Glorantha being a setting for paper and dice role-playing games, and we'd been using Glorantha, and I decided to make was actually a very similar type of long-term game that was going to take place over 75 years of play, have a complete character arc. And we played that, and later one of my friends ran a very similar game, and it was about that time I was bouncing thoughts off Greg Stafford, who's the creator of Glorantha, about sort of what was wrong with computer games, what I would do as a computer game, and we sort of had very similar thoughts, and kind of one thing led to another, and I started working on the Glorantha computer game, King of Dragon Pass.
Very cool.
So this questionnaire sort of
Yes.
starting point actually originally came from Greg Stafford, and we tweaked it a little bit to fit the game better. But he'd run a paper and dice role-playing game of this also, which is one of the reasons we got excited about doing it. And this is defining your clan, basically. You don't really have a character the way you do in a typical role-playing game. You're really role-playing a group of people, and you're basically making their backstory right now. So there's no right or wrong choices. Just what backstory do you want? I mean, it has an effect, especially if you want to be a thrall-owning clan. You'll have story situations that deal with thralls and whether you should free them or how well you treat them.
Yeah, I was gonna do I usually do a clan that matches my or roughly matches my moral compass, I believe, or what I perceive to be my moral compass.
So you're a peace clan?
Oh, what? Sorry?
You're a peace clan then, huh?
Usually, generally, yeah. But I was thinking I was gonna maybe try just going a little crazy, but I still don't know about the thralls question though. That one's sticking me up a little bit.
Then don't do it. There's really no right or wrong answer. You'll have a few less story choices.
Let's see, our enemies.
You'll have an enemy. They will give you a hard time as you keep playing.
All right, so we'll be a war clan.
Ooh. So you're going to make your money by raiding in large part, but you still are a farmer. Everyone's a farmer. You have cows.
Let's see.
This is your first deity, so if you're going to be a war clan, you almost want to start with the opposite to give yourself an economic base to not worry about. So something like Arnalda for crops or Uralda for cows would be a reasonable choice. Again, there's no right or wrong choices on these.
The dragons. Yeah, last game I played, I was peaceful with them, which was okay, but it's always a risk. Oh gosh.
No one
neutral. All right. So, yeah, in terms of taking land, I'm gonna be greedy.
These all have trade-offs. You have harder borders to patrol if it's large, and it's more tempting to other people.
All right, so I'm going to do the long game, which I'll just go with this default name for now. That's okay.
You can use emoji too.
Ooh, well then maybe I will be...
You have an emoji keyboard handy.
Maybe my emoji keyboard isn't live on my iPad. It definitely exists on my iPhone. No, I should have thought of that. All right, well, looks like... All right, I will be... Braddington will be my clan name. And I'm going to stick on normal since I'm going to only have to be paying attention, so...
Normal is actually fairly hard.
That is definitely true, too. Let me see if we have some questions before I get into managing my clan. We've got quite a few, actually.
Oh, good.
start giving stuff away, and they just. No, I'm just kidding. No, these are legit questions. We actually had some from the announcement I posted earlier this week. William asks. He asks, what sustainable plans would help you continue to add content to King of Dragon Pass? I guess he wants more content. What kind of world would that be where you could continue to add content?
Sustainable is a big issue in the game business. You know,
Right.
it's a hit-driven business. It just is. Uh, Boy, I may have to punt on that one. There's also sort of only so much that this particular game can take in terms of content. It was never designed for downloadable content updates or anything like that. Back in the original
Right.
version, I've made it a little bit more flexible, but it still has a file format that's not really easy to add to. Um, yeah, that's a tough one. I'd like to be able to keep working on it, that's for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, that's one of the major questions, right? I think in all game creation, game publishing is keeping the flow and how you reach that sustainable level.
Yeah, sorry,
Um,
I don't have a good answer on that one.
so he's asking, along with that, what iOS or Mac games do you have in the pipeline? Any side projects, anything you're working on?
Uh, Not really anything to talk about right now.
All right, that's a good answer too. Okay, so it's sea season, which I generally don't want to go raiding during.
Definitely don't. You don't need to go raiding every year, even as a war clan. I mean,
All right,
you want to keep your own warriors happy, and you want to keep the traditions of your ancestors, but you're going to make a lot of people unhappy who are not you. So you got to balance that. You know, pretty much everything in the game is some kind of balance. Sometimes
right.
the trade-offs are pretty obviously you want to do it, but there's usually some little cost, and they kind of accumulate. This is a foreigner, so maybe there's not a lot of cost other than if you fight, you die.
Right.
But
Only to
you
first
get
blood.
valuable stuff. There's some good treasures out of this. Or
All
am I
right.
giving away? I don't usually give away story stuff, so
Yeah, we don't want to spoil anything. So it looks like my advisors are telling me a lot of them are saying to refuse the duel. It's not very warlike for a war clan.
well, you haven't picked your advisors yet either, so that may be part of it.
That's true. I'm using the default ones right now, the ones that jumped on. I'm going to allow the duel only to first blood. He does not like that idea. If you wager something valuable, a treasure,
Ooh, you could lose your only treasure.
who accepts the challenge? All right, who's good at combat here?
It is sorting in combat order right now, so Rangor is the best.
All right, Rangor, you may die. Let's do this. Whew,
Woohoo!
magic.
So have you
uh,
turned off the music, or is it just the way the?
oh, yeah, sorry. There definitely is music, and but our current setup does not allow for sound transfer from the game. Um, kind of a limitation of Google Hangouts, but hopefully uh, that will improve if we change our setup in the future. Um, so one more question from William, and let's see, I'm not even familiar with this game, so he's definitely a big fan. What are your plans for Opal, and would you consider porting it to iOS?
I do get asked. Opal is the outliner that I did for Mac OS 10,
Okay.
and it is extremely difficult to port because of some technical reasons. I used Apple routines that are only supported on OS 10, and the file format is not readable on iOS, so probably not, which is too bad. It's what
Alrighty.
I use it every day for tracking all kinds of stuff, development diary when I'm working on software.
Right.
Opal's a great product, but you need an OS 10 machine to use it.
I'm gonna have to check it out. Is it on the Mac App Store?
No, it is not. It's you can get it from the asharp.com website. It's
Okay.
#sharp.
I will definitely have to grab that. All right. I am going to give the shaman some goods. Hmm. Yeah, cool breast. You can go bargain again. All right. We have a lot of questions actually tonight. This is really great. So yeah, as you're saying, we're playing. There's a lot of story events that we're going through. Each one, what I really love about this game as compared to some similar games in the genre is I feel like the answers are pretty morally ambiguous, uh, which is I think great. Like a lot of games will be like either they're just all bad choices or they're really obvious good or bad choices, and that's definitely not what's going on here at all.
Yeah, some of that's also because it's a little bit of an alien morality because we're not the Orlente people.
Right,
We're pretty similar, but we're not the same. Generosity and hospitality, we kind of go by those, but not to the same degree. We don't usually have the same need for vengeance.
right. So I sent a war party, and a lot of them died. So that's not super great.
I think
Um,
you start recruiting more warriors.
yeah, that might be
That's almost
needed
always good advice.
to up recruit people to weapon thing.
You might as well max it out because it's going to take an action.
Right. Let's see, just from the Carls, or do I go outside the clan? I'm gonna go outside the clan also. Alrighty.
So if you,
Probably should build some shrines as well.
well, first you
Sorry,
might want to sacrifice for knowledge so that
for
you have,
one of the.
like a war god, you don't have any Humacht magic
Oh,
yet.
that's true. We don't have any. Okay.
You're just new here in Dragon Pass, and you didn't bring all your shrine stuff, and you split from your clan with the God Talkers.
We got the battle luck ritual. Hooray!
Ooh,
Let me toss you another question here.
here's
Um,
these guys want to end a feud.
I don't know. It's not a very war clan thing. All right. I'll be peaceful. Give you some goods. So another question is there a good time interval for hero questing? How often should you do it? I think that is one of the biggest new player questions is it's kind of a feature that you feel like you can ignore, but then it's also, required to eventually win the game.
So yes, you do need to hero quest occasionally. I think though, in a long game, you could get by with like 10 hero quests out of like a 50 or 60 year game. So like once every 5 or 10, not 10, once every 5 to 7 years
Okay.
is plenty. Um, they're really powerful, which means they can also have really big negative trade-offs. You
That
can,
seems like a common theme with King of Dragon Pass.
well, everything has a trade-off.
Right.
Actually, one of our, I don't know if it's the most common bug report, but it's actually certain hero quests can have consequences that are so bad that people report bugs. Let's just leave it at that.
So it's true. They are very challenging. I actually will confess to having to use online guides for a few of them to get
So
there.
the in-game thing you can do is to sacrifice for as much knowledge as possible, and that will give you some hints that you can
Right.
during
By
the hero
re
quest.
by reading through the lore section, is that correct?
Well,
And
you can read through the lore section and get the story that you're trying to reenact, but there's also in the mobile versions we have hero quest hints, so you don't have to refer back to the myth in the middle of the quest.
right.
But to keep that in game, you'll have to have learned the myth.
That's a pretty terrible creature.
Ooh, a octopus. Yes, they are chaotic.
I'm gonna do it in exchange for a treasure. Um, so we have another question. I know we talked a little bit about the game coming from the pen and paper role playing game. Uh, w- uh, Wikipedia Brown asks, what were some of your other inspirations when developing the storyline of Kingdom Dragon Pass?
So probably Icelandic sagas were a really, really big one. Um, things like Njál's saga and Egil's saga. There's a number of the family sagas that took place over multiple generations, and those are more individually. Well, they're not quite individual. Again, it's the whole bloodline that's involved. The hero might be avenged by his children or grandchildren, and that's that sort of long-term story that sort of by necessity doesn't get into huge amounts of detail about the people.
Okay.
Yet they're still clearly people with personalities, and so it seemed like a reasonable scale for a computer game. I believe actually some of my earliest sketches were for an Icelandic saga game that was going to run on Newton.
That's a pretty.
Obviously, that never happened, but
That's true. And maybe in another world. So
I guess. Oh, also I should always credit. There was a game called Castles that came out. I think it was PC or DOS or something back in the day, and it was a sort of a standard strategic game of building up castles, but it had these occasional story interludes that were written by Scott Benny, and I found the story interludes a lot more interesting than the building up of a castle and then surviving the attack. So I was taking the best part of that game and merging it with other stuff. And that was sort of the form that the interactive choices originally came from, although there were no advisors, and I don't think they connected to the rest of the game as to the same way that King of Dragon Pass does.
Right. So I was just told that the clans don't really respect me.
Well, you haven't. Yeah.
And I've not done any.
It's only the second year. But
let's see. So we have alliances with White Horse and. Guess we should make friends with our neighbors. We'll send an emissary to Brown Bear.
And yeah, you can afford gifts right now.
I guess goods are a good gift target.
Gifts are good. Obviously, people prefer cattle, but you generally want to keep cattle.
All right.
They're nominally interchangeable, but cows will have calves, and pigs are just piles of stuff. All
right. Let me see.
This is actually, this isn't the newest. This is a scene we added since the original version, though.
Okay, so this was new with the iOS version?
It was new in iOS at some point. I don't think it. Yeah, this is. It wasn't in the original iOS one either, I don't think. But
okay.
If you never played the game in a long time, this would be a new scene.
So, a question along those lines is, someone's asking, when you were translating the game to iOS, was it pretty straightforward, or did you need to change some elements? I guess the same goes for the Android port as well. Of course, I know you weren't directly involved in the coding of that, but do you have any thoughts along those lines?
Yeah, there were certain. I mean, obviously, the original game was 640 by 480, which is one of the reasons the art is not larger right now here on the iPad. But the screens weren't going to fit on iPhone, so there was a little bit of stuff I just needed to cut as much as possible, and so it turned out some of the things that I wanted to cut for space reasons were not really very interesting decisions. There was some very detailed stuff about craft allocation that just really was not a very interesting decision. It was more something you'd forget to do than actually make a positive decision, so the game now just picks a reasonable value for that. There was one screen that was way too complicated to redo and did not have any choices on it, so that also went away. The yearly recap, but it was crazy hard to code. It was a nice screen, but it did not have any decisions, and it was never going to get out. Also, there were some additional complexity with herds that the original game had cows and sheep and pigs, and didn't really make a big difference in the overall scheme of things. So this cows number you see is actually your herds in general.
Okay.
I went back and forth on whether we should call it herds instead of cows, and stuck with cows because it's sort of more picturesque and it's the nominal currency. But if you went to the farming screen, you'd see the true breakdown of your herds.
Right.
So yeah, there's a few things that I was just trying to streamline and simplify. I sort of was hoping I could get more simplified, but without radically changing the game, that wasn't going to happen. And with over 500 scenes, and they would all need retuning potentially, there's sort of only so much to do with a reasonable time frame.
Right. That makes sense.
And yeah, the Android one is basically, once it existed for iPad and iPhone, HeroCraft was able to take the same game and just basically run on a zillion different screen sizes.
Which I think is always the challenge.
The game was never designed for it, so I respect their ability to do that.
Right.
It was a big pain when the iPhone 5 came out with a widescreen, and we hadn't designed for that. And I had to redo 30 different screens. Yeah, get that watchtower. Oh, here's a nice treasure.
I think that's great if we're going to be... I think we want to keep it if we're going to be a war clan.
This is a good one.
Another question we have here is, are there any plans to bring this kind of enhanced iOS version back to the PC/Mac?
Nope. It's basically, we used a development system back in 1999. Actually, it was discontinued in 1998, so there's no way to use the original and put anything back. It would require recoding everything not everything, but it would be as big a development effort as it was to bring to iOS, and you'd have exactly the same game. We wouldn't have bigger assets, so it'd be a small screen. It wouldn't be anything different, really. I mean, it would have new scenes, but it wouldn't be a different game. So it seems like that's an awful lot of effort to get kind of where you started.
Right. That makes sense.
You can still buy the original if you only have a Windows machine. GOG.com will sell it to you.
Right.
But yeah, it doesn't have the slightly simplified game system, and it doesn't have a lot of new scenes. I think we're up to over 60 now.
Wow, that's a lot of scenes. Potential things that could happen. I haven't run into the naked man yet, which is he's a normal one.
Well, that's because he's in the tutorial.
Oh, he's only in the tutorial. Okay.
Let's see if there's any interesting advice here. I noticed you've been looking at it, but I think some of the best. Oh, the second guy is. Brandbig is.
It's very anti-elf. It looks like
he has it in for the elves. So your clan ring is not only giving you advice based on their abilities, which if you tap twice, you'll see what their abilities are. But they also have a personality, and Brandbig is probably a little bit xenophobic here. Not always a good thing, but it's just who he is.
Let me ask you another question while I decide what to do with these elves. David Albin is asking, have you ever figured out how many different ways the game could end successfully using the short or long versions?
How many different ways? Well, there's pretty much one ending in each.
Okay.
But the ways you get there can be pretty diverse. It was sort of a drawback in a way with a story game that we were trying to have what's hopefully kind of a dramatic climax at the end. So you can't do as much sandbox play of, oh, this is a fairly recent scene.
Okay. Sorry.
So a sandbox game, you could do tons of different stuff, but there's no guarantee that it's going to be any kind of drama. It can be a lot of fun, of course, but we're trying not to railroad you at the same time.
Right.
And there's plenty of ways to sort of not quite get to the end and loop back, and then you have another chance. And
We're gonna
so
fight a tree.
I bet Brandbig doesn't like this tree either.
No, he said to kill all the trees.
I'm not surprised.
Most of the clan ring agreed that we
Well,
should.
it's kind of an evil tree.
I think we got it. Let's see who got hurt.
I think you got. You could always check the saga, right?
Yeah, I clicked through too quickly.
I know you're trying to do three things at once, but
Oh, they could not find the tree.
could not locate it. Yeah, it's one of those magic trees.
The kids found it though, and they died. All right, so again, if anyone has any questions, make sure to post them on Board Game Geek. You can also send them on the @iOS Board Games Twitter. I should see them there, or the YouTube comments. You can also post there. All right, let's see. So I had to refresh. So this is a pretty funny question, actually. A new BGG user says he bought the game, he played it, he sucks at it. Question is there a good source for ideas on strategy? Where can people learn more? If they're feeling like they're continuing to hit against a wall each time they play, is there somewhere they can go?
So first of all, there is a manual. I know that's
Right.
kind of anathema to 2014, but the manual actually has a lot of interesting and useful stuff. The number one thing probably is to think like an Orlanthe. I've mentioned earlier, I think that your real job is to role play the people.
Right.
It takes sometimes a little bit of a mindset shift. You're not playing a 4X game, even though parts of the game look like a 4X game. You're fighting, and theoretically you want to conquer your neighbors, except you don't really want to conquer your neighbors. That's the wrong thinking. You wouldn't be able to rule them if you did, because these are Orlanthe and no one can make you do anything. We also have on our website a tips page.
Okay.
I don't know if it's quite strategic, maybe it's more tactics than strategies in a way.
Oh,
and there's a King of Dragon Pass wiki that a couple of the fans have set up. I believe there's a few sort of strategy articles there.
Yeah, I believe the wiki is where I went to as well to kind of solve the puzzle of the hero quest, which I couldn't make it through. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good options out there.
Right, but the manual's right here in the game, and this also, if you prefer, that you can download a PDF from our website.
And that,
especially if you're on a phone or something, you might want it on a second screen.
Yeah, and I think the tutorial does a good job of at least giving you a really good starting setup. Kind of.
You might want to actually start again, because we intentionally have you make one bad move, so we can say that it's a bad move. It's not death, but.
I'm trying to remember what it is. I have to go back to replay.
I think the tutorial has you raid during harvest.
Oh yeah, you raid during sea season, I think, actually. I remember because it was lecturing me the rest of the year. You raided during sea season. You raided during sea season.
Yeah, it was kind of a sneaky way of not having it in the tutorial, but in the tutorial. Sometimes you've got to do it because your honor was offended, but again, it has a consequence.
I'm just doing a little fortifications.
Have you explored yet? Because that's actually
I've explored a little bit.
I guess you did. Yeah, that's it's a pretty good way to. It's usually a pretty safe move. I mean, again, nothing is safe. You can always lose your explorers, but
right. Oh no! A surprise storm.
And it's sea season. You would not expect this.
No, sounds. And we were anti the ice.
Oh, if you're anti them, you do not want to propitiate them then, because your ancestors would hate you.
I guess we need to fight the ice demons.
Do you have a moderate number of weapon things now?
Yeah, not a huge number, but maybe we can gather windlords from many clans.
Yeah, that can work. Oops.
Our herd suffered though. Darn it. All right. Well, now it's fire season. Maybe we can go on a cattle raid and get those.
Sounds good.
We haven't raided yet, so let's do that. Go on a cattle raid. Seems like a good number of people. All right, I forget who I'm friendly with right now.
Well, the big red ones are your feuds.
Then we'll go after them. I tried to.
Oops, they'd already mustered.
Bad luck. We might need to throw a feast.
Get some more warriors.
Let's up
You
the
need a
weapon.
lot. You're a war clan.
All right. Oh no. The troublemaking child. Let me check if we have some more questions real quick. So Nathan is asking if the Android version works well, do you plan to future projects to do both iOS and Android?
That would make sense. But it's a
Great.
little bit early to tell how well it's really doing, but
I can kill the little boy.
well, that might be extreme, but he did just desecrate a temple.
That's true. He did. I need to get in the mindset.
I don't think anyone's going to recommend that one, but maybe they.
No, actually, because he's a trickster, right? So he.
But sometimes he has the best advice. It's hard to know.
I can't do it. I'll just let his kinsfolk deal with it. But it is a shrine. All right, we need to sacrifice some cattle. Oh no, not enough cattle.
Should have killed him, I guess, huh?
I guess we should have killed the little boy. Yikes. Let me see. We have his other question. His last question was, where do the ducks come from? Which I think is a pretty big question from a lot of players that aren't familiar with the Glorantha lore. Do you mind explaining a little bit about that?
The far east of Glorantha, I think, but I do know the sort of origin story in Glorantha. When Greg Stafford was making a war game in Dragon Pass, he had his friends name some of the cities.
Okay.
And I don't remember the complete story of all of them, but someone said, well, mine is going to be called Duck Point. And so that kind of led to, well, it must be because ducks live there. And so eventually Greg developed a mythology that ducks are either humans cursed with the form of a duck, or they're birds cursed with intelligence. Hard to tell.
I feel like grabbing that dragon statue was a really, really bad choice. I'm pretty sure I've been killed by dragons that way before.
Well, yeah, probably. You can get a statue too, so.
That's true. Let's do it. Go Ragnar. Go get it. And it's funny. One of the first times
we got it.
Treasure. We'll wait till the dragons come and kill me. One of the first times I hit really a hard, in-game condition in this was the Beastman Apocalypse. Don't want to give too much away, but basically I beat up the ducks a lot, and it didn't end well for me, which was sad.
Oh, you got an achievement though.
I did get an achievement. That's true. All right, we've got a lot of questions, so let me keep going with those. Okay, so we've got a lot of questions about the hero quest, of course. They're asking, what is the best time or season to do a quest, and what kind of sacrifices will ensure success?
I don't think that has an answer.
Okay, it's all variable based on what's been happening.
You definitely want to have allocated sacred time magic to the quest,
Okay.
but you're traveling from our normal world to the world of the gods, and it's a big and scary place. And even if you think you know what you're supposed to do, you can fail, and someone has to do it. It's easy to say, well, just go kill the dragon. Well, yeah, you kill a dragon. Even though you know it's the right thing to do, it doesn't mean you can do it. So, hero quests, there's never a guarantee of success. Sacred time magic is one of the best ways to do it. Pick the best leader. Don't do it too often because there's sort of only so much your clan can magically afford to do. You can keep trying, but it's much less likely to succeed if you've done it recently. Oh, you got an alliance.
Yes.
And duck food.
That delicious, delicious duck food.
That should keep you going pretty well.
I feel I'm running a little low on goods. I need to maybe increase my trade. Let's see.
And there's also, sacrifice to Isries for magic, and but it's always a trade-off. Which stuff do you want first?
Right.
If you get the market blessing going, you'd be making more goods.
We can try that. I guess sacrifice for knowledge.
Yeah, most of the early game you're going to be sacrificing for mysteries, and you learn a myth. But it's a long-term thing.
Right. Exactly. So we have a question. Is it still possible to buy the game on CD or in a box?
I'm trying to remember what price I saw on that. Someone just posted it on eBay somewhere in Europe, and I think it was like $300. So technically, yes, but no, not in the box. If someone absolutely needs a CD, I could burn you a copy. We have information on our website, but that would be the original 1999 version, and you're probably better off getting that as a download from GOG.com if you want the original version.
Right.
But we long ago ran out of boxes.
I feel like that's a tough commodity to come by these days. It's boxed video games.
It's pretty rare. I should have dug up a box. I don't. Oh, well.
And I think some people, maybe, I don't know if they saw it, but you do have some art from the game in the background there, which I believe is representation of yourself.
Yeah, I do have.
Sorry, I don't know if you can get to it.
Actually, most of the team members ended up in the game. I don't know if this shows up at all.
Yeah. It's a little reflection, but
so everyone had 3 ages because again, this is a 75-year game, and characters will get old and die.
Right.
So my wife, who is an associate producer and programmer, is on the top, and that's me on the bottom in this particular image. So there's actually the game's Easter egg is to start with a clan ring composed entirely of team members.
I don't know how to unlock that. I guess I'll have to discover it.
Apparently, people have figured it out, or the lore spreads. But
along that line, someone's asking, have you ever considered selling art from the game online?
So actually, we do have art from the game online. I have an Etsy page for that. The art was originally up to the artists to sell as sort of a part of their compensation. We did pay them. We paid all of the people who worked on the game. But to get them to work a little bit cheaper, they were able to sell the art. And I don't know what exactly Mike Rabe sold. I know Stefano Gadiano sold a number of pieces. The ducks went real early. If you didn't get a duck in probably 2001, it's too late. But there are still, I ended up buying them in bulk off of Stefano and have them on an Etsy page now. And that should be linked from our website.
Awesome.
So yeah, their original art, I can sign the back. I could sign the front, but I think you'd rather I sign the back.
Cool. Well, people have to definitely check that out. John is asking, how close is this to the old Dragon Pass board game?
So I'd say not very in some ways, just because it's a totally different style of play. Um,
Hmm.
and of course, the board game is about 300 years in the future. We The map does not come directly from the board game. We had a different map that Greg Stafford had done. I think it was actually his role playing map with a lot of detail, and we use that as the base map here. There is an interesting map note, which
Oh,
you could go to the map screen, just because in the history of the game, go to the map screen just to make it bigger.
sure.
So much of the in most games you'll explore unknown territory, but your ancestors lived here a few hundred years ago, so you kind of know there's a river. That
Right.
river there on the left. It's obvious there's a giant mountain, Carofin, because you can see that from anywhere. So that's why we show the original map here, because your ancestors knew about it. It's not completely unknown. On the other hand, it's been hundreds of years, and the filled in part is your exploration.
Right.
I think that's relatively unique in games.
Yeah, that's true. I never considered that because you have the vague idea of what things are there, but
Right, but it's there for a reason. It's not, it helps reinforce the story, and vice versa. It gives, you could set off and make a pilgrimage to Carofin because you can see it, even though you don't know what's in between.
right. Which I just tried actually, so we'll see if Colbras dies on his way there. Um, so there's a question about the music for the game. Did you compose the music yourself, or did you work with a composer for the game?
So I work with a talented composer named Stan Lepard, who has continued in the game business. He did, I believe, Plants vs. Zombies, maybe Plants vs. Zombies 2.
Okay.
So yeah, Stan did all of our music, and he at one point discovered he had the original high-quality versions of it. We'd had to compress it in the 1999 version to fit everything on a CD, but compression is better now, and we could use the like the 16-bit version instead of the 8-bit or something like that. I can't remember the specifics, but basically, I remastered the music for one of the updates for iOS, so it should sound much better with headphones now.
Again, we were not able to raid.
You're sending fairly large parties. I mean, that's always the trade-off. If you send a few people, you're sneakier, but
Sneaky.
then if they ever catch you, they'll beat you up. So,
All right, so I'm going to sacrifice, and we've got magic here.
oh, you got a lot, yeah.
Drive them off and proceed. Yikes, that was not great.
So nomads are one of your most fearsome foes.
Whew, that was bad. I lost a lot of farmers. Um, yeah, so I think this is a game that or this is a question that I can answer, but Mike is asking, does it work well on a smaller screen, like an iPod Touch? Yeah, I mean, that's what I originally played the game on. When it first came to iOS, that was the target platform, if I'm correct.
Yep.
And it came to iPad later on. And so, yeah, I think it definitely works well there. That's where I experienced it for a long time.
Yeah, I personally think iPad is better just because right now you can see the picture and the text is next to it instead of partly covering it. But
Right.
you can always tap to reveal the pictures, so you're not losing out on the artwork on the iPhone or iPod Touch. Just a slightly more convenient interface, but we definitely did design it for iPhone. And it was pleasant how well it adapted, considering it was originally not for a touch device.
Yikes, I need my weapon thanes back. They went on a quest and have not returned.
What's your constraint there? Are you short of horses, or look at your advisors, because it looks like you're maxed out, and your advisors will always tell you something about this. Yes, important stuff.
Our weapon thanes and all our steeds. Yep, we
Need
do
more
not have horses.
So you might want to go send out a trading mission for horses.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And again, one of your advisors can tell you who has the most horses. It's, it's not necessarily the best place to go, but you could probably get them at the Vostangi.
Let's head there.
And if you're really desperate for horses, you might, and you have the money, the goods, the cows, you want to hit. It's covered up right now. The
Oh, sorry.
a larger caravan.
I
A
don't know if
big,
we have enough to sell, really.
but you'd have 98 goods, so you probably could afford.
All right, let's go.
Probably.
I'm a little afraid about bandits again. Oh, the warriors are back. Our weapon things are back.
But
Woo.
but you still were unable to recruit, so having more horses is a plus.
Right.
You made it to Carofin.
Let me just grab some more questions real quick. Um, what were the major hurdles that you had to overcome, I'm sorry, during the design process?
Which design process?
Right.
I'll go back to the original because that was actually something we were talking briefly about before the call started. We are using the world of Glorantha, which is incredibly rich and detailed, yet it did not have basically any of the hero quests we needed for the game. So at one point we had to write, was it like 6 different hero quests? So we were making up new myths and then the hero quests that were associated with them. I don't know if there's any major design issues. There are certainly lots of little challenges. I know our scripting language was immensely better because Sean Steele came up with the ways to make it more general. Made life much easier in terms of coding up these. I think it was only 450 scenes in the original, but over 500 now. There's some balance issues. Rob Hainso, who was running our QA, was realizing that it wasn't quite fun enough. And that's very difficult sometimes to add that extra level of fun in the middle. And he came up with a heroic combat, which I think adds a lot of color. In fact, literally sometimes it's quite colorful text in the middle of battle.
Right.
That was not something in the original spec. In a lot of ways, though, it was a game that came out fairly close to the way I had envisioned it, which is kind of nice. Clearly, there are plenty of tactical decisions, and I didn't write all the scenes. Robin Laws wrote all of those, but
there's so many. Yeah, that would be quite the task, I think, to write them all, to do all the text. I mean, there's just so much.
Robin did most of it, other than
it's pretty amazing.
We weren't able to get him in the update, so Elise and I did all the scenes in the update, except for the contest winners.
Right. I like this one. She says, I think,
She's a woman of many words.
All right, so I finally raided, which made the warriors happy. We finally had a successful raid.
Yay.
The farmers are uncertain, though. Maybe give them some gifts?
You can. I mean, some things you'll never make everyone happy.
It's true. I want them to at least be resolved, though. All right.
You have horses.
Hey. Let's see. This one question I think might be a joke. But any word on a PlayStation Vita release? I think that's a joke.
I think that was actually because I discovered some old information that originally HeroCraft was thinking about that.
Oh, okay.
And their contract allows for it, but it's not up to us. It's up to HeroCraft, and I'm not aware of any particular target there.
Right, and I think it might have been a joke because Ascension was announced today for Vita. So there's a couple questions. Is it possible to play this game on a tabletop?
On a tabletop? Well,
like, could you recreate it with cards and things?
Um, I was actually I've forgotten someone mentioned that, and I actually had a few ideas how it might work, but I think it would be. Oh, you sacrificed to the trickster. I believe I shouldn't be paying attention to the game. I should talk
Oh
about my
yeah, I
character.
did. I let the trickster magics and the spirits elsewhere.
Everything has a consequence. Could it be a tabletop game? Probably, but it would have to be quite different. Partly because the game is actually tracking a huge number of factors, and clan relationships in particular are very subtle sometimes. You can be popular with the clan leadership, but the other clan, the majority of the people are still remembering grudges. Probably because they don't get the gifts. When you give gifts, it goes to the leadership. So
Right.
um,
Doesn't really trickle down. It's
you
not a trickle
also
down economy.
owe obligations back and forth, and if you're in a tribe, there's sort of additional political level of how they were treated as part of the tribe. Um, and these things allow for the stories to interlock in a way that I think would be very difficult in a paper version.
Right. Because there's just so much that I mean that the game is handling for you.
I actually, yeah, at some point, someone asked this, and I came up with a partial solution, but it would be a lot of work regardless.
Right. We're
I
a
think
little low on magic. We used a lot last year.
well, magic
Um,
reuse. You have a ton of magic. Oh, eight. Oh, it's the start of the year. I'm not paying enough attention.
yeah. Yeah, start of the year. I'm trying to keep some in reserve. Yeah, I haven't asked every question, but I've just skipped over a few that are kind of repeats of other things that we've talked about. Let's see, we've got some Twitter questions. Uh, oh, this is interesting, actually. I know you've spoken to me many times about this, how the game is very accessible for those that are blind,
Yes.
because it has voiceover that allows you to make your choices without having to be able to see what's going on the screen. And it's very much a story-based game, so you're really getting, I think, an equivalent experience. So Michael, he says, have you played through a game using voiceover? What was that like for you as a sighted person?
I've certainly never played an entire game. I'm I'm not very good at voiceover, if you will.
Right.
So
It's kind of a learned skill, I guess.
I think you get better with it over time. I will just point out on the subject of voiceover that you should turn on hints. Voiceover hints, I think people usually have off because they're annoying in a lot of applications, but in King of Dragon Pass, there was information that sort of had to be in the hint. Oh, there's another new scene.
Oh yeah.
So I've certainly played it with voiceover to a limited degree. I guess I probably cheat and keep my eyes open, so it's not quite the same experience.
Hmm.
But it is entirely playable if you cannot see the screen and you're using voiceover. And yeah, I just got a comment from someone a couple days ago about that. She's really happy that she can play a game, and now her iPhone is more than just a tool, it's a fun thing.
That's very cool. I hope that other story-based games can follow your example and provide that experience.
It can be very tough to do that. It depends on the style of the game.
Right. Um, so just one last question, and then maybe we'll call it a night. I probably should solve this thing. But I'm sorry. How many of the treasures in the game have a precedent in the Gloranthan lore?
Probably none, but I'm not entirely sure. They were pretty much either Robin Laws or I made up treasures to suit the needs of the game. I mean, they may be named after, Venga's comb or something, but I'm pretty sure well, Belantar's book, I think, is a real thing. But basically, the treasures are not intended to be a Glorantha lore in particular.
Hmm.
Kumok's Raven Banner sounds like it's Gloranthan, but I don't think anyone had ever seen it before the game. I mean, now it is part of Glorantha.
Right. I don't know who I want to raid. I'm kind of friends with too many people. It's problems for a war clan.
You have two. Don't you have two?
Yeah, but
They're strong.
every time I raid the Tenderlings, they always stop me. Oh, I made it this time. Okay, let's
Well, now
do it.
you're. They still caught you. You have to fight.
Oh, but the standard bearer dies. Hmm.
You don't want to use it on a little raid, probably. This is a little cattle raid that went. Oh yeah, you got it.
Captured 19 cows. But I think 3 weapon thanes were wounded. Yeah. Well, I'm really enjoying the game, and I wish we could play through longer. I think a full game would probably take several hours of time.
It definitely. Our original goal for the game was to have 40 hours of total play, which would include replay.
Okay.
So you getting one game is not 40 hours, but it's probably over 6. I don't know. Depends on how fast you are.
Right. And I've definitely not been playing super fast this time. But yeah, I definitely, if you guys haven't checked this out, I definitely recommend it. We do have some codes to give away, which I will send out in the next couple days, probably Saturday. Um, yeah, thank you so much, David, for joining us. We really love the game, and uh, look forward to playing more of it. It's a game that I don't. There's not a lot of iOS games that I come back to and have a playthrough session every once in a while, but yours is definitely one of them that I think you can keep coming back to, even if you have beat it. The path to get there is going to be different every time, uh, because
I
there's
mean, we
just
really we
so much
went overboard
variability.
on replay.
Yeah, there's just so much variability, and I mean, even if you're not playing to win, just playing to experience a story that generally will end terribly, I think there's a lot of fun to be had there too. Um, the first when I was playing on iPhone, I didn't realize the full scope of how to actually achieve victory, and just died in many interesting ways, but I had fun the entire time.
Well,
So
it's been fun answering questions and watching you play. Thanks for
yeah,
the
and
time
there
to do it.
yeah, and there may be more questions that people post. If you want to hop on Board Game Geek, maybe if you have some time, you can answer some of them. But yeah, thanks for everyone that watched, and thank you so much, David, for joining us tonight. This is a really great game, and I definitely recommend you check it out. And I will have some codes to give out to those that ask questions in the next couple of days. So thank you guys so much. Bye.
Night, Brad.